Jerry, an alcoholic addict?
Name me anything, any kind of group. I also say I identify as an alcoholic because two other reasons. My mother was an alcoholic, and as we know, this disease is hereditary. And also, I can't remember any time, no matter how far back I go in my mind to when I was a child, I don't remember a day when the four horsemen of the alcoholic weren't riding my shoulders. And that's terror, bewilderment, anxiety, and despair. Even as a little kid, my first memories were fear of getting whipped. I was born to an Irish Catholic father, a very famous man in show business, and my mother, like I said, was an alcoholic. And he took a look around, what do you call it, Hollywood, I guess, when I was born. He didn't like what he saw. He said he saw a lot of Hollywood kids. He saw a lot of rich kids getting in trouble and getting smart lawyers to bail them out. He saw a lot of guys cracking up cars and getting new ones the next day. He saw guys doing things wrong and parents just giving them handfuls of money just to get them away, get them out of the country, send them to Europe, send them to Paris. And he said, I'm not going to have any Hollywood kids in my house. And that's how he raised us. And we were always taught that we were no better than anybody else. We were just like the next guy. And we were nothing special just because he was. And that was, yeah. My mother used to say, just because your father's somebody special doesn't mean you're anything. You're nobody. You just stay in line and don't give anybody any trouble. My father also believed that he was one of the old-timers who believed you could mold kids into the kind of men and women that you wanted them to be by physical punishment and a lot of rules and a lot of regulations, a lot of discipline, and that's how he raised us. We had rules and regulations for every hour of every day. We had rules and regulations for getting up, rules and regulations for eating breakfast, rules and regulations for going to school, coming home from school. Excuse me. After school, dinner, meal times all were laid out in a certain way, and it had to be done at a certain time in a certain way, and that was it. Otherwise, the punishments were meted out. Now, if we had things like if we left something on the floor of our room that day, the next day when we go to school, we had to wear it around our neck, which a lot of times we had underwear around our neck, a sock, an old shoe, whatever it was. It was like the Army. It was policed up like the Army. Also, everybody was allowed to take a shot at us. See, not only him. If he took us to a school, a new school, or someplace like that, when he dropped us off, he would say, if they get out of line, you handle them, and then call me, and I'll take care of them when I get them home. And that's how it was. And to make sure that we had plenty of discipline, just in case we might draw a free breath, we were always sent to Catholic schools and Catholic military schools. See? So we had everybody watching us all the time, and everybody could take a shot. So we got used to... Violence became a part of our lives real early. And once you get a kid used to violence, it ain't no big deal. When I say punishment, he started out with a belt, big Western belt about that wide, and he used to have silver conchos on it, little points coming out of it. And when we did something wrong, we broke one of the many rules that we had, we'd get called in. Why did you do it? I don't know. That was a safe answer, yeah. An announcement?
Yeah. Somebody that has a white car parked along this fire exit here has to be moved. It's behind the silver car that's up along this driveway here. It's a white vehicle.
It's not me.
I'm sorry, Gary. I'm sorry.
Oh, there's another Gary? Oh. I thought I don't have a white. I knew it wasn't me that time. I didn't do it. Wasn't me. So where the hell was I? Wasn't important anyway. Oh yeah, and he would. The safe answer was always I don't know, because if you said something else, he'd lash you with verbally. If you had a reason, it was never any good. Your explanation wasn't any good. There was never any reason. The rule was broken. You got the punishment. And we'd get bent over a couch, and he would whip us till we bled. And that was the sign to stop. Now it was never any crazed, wild, swinging and screaming and yelling. It was just very calm, very methodical. He whipped you till you bled, and then you went back to your room. Later on in life, when we got older, he had a hardwood Malacca cane. He used to bend us over a couch in the hallway, and he would take it in both hands and step into us like when you hit the baseball. And he'd do that 13 to 19 times, somewhere in there, each time. And if you cried, you got it worse, and if you moved, you got it worse. So the idea was to just stand in there and bow your neck and take it, man. And just take it and take it and take it. And the idea, pretty soon it became a game. It became a thing of, let me see how much I can take of this without even uttering a sound. When you got so you could handle the whole load, then you started looking back over your shoulder at him while he was doing it, And he had, what it created was an ability to take a tremendous amount of punishment and not show anybody anything, not show anybody how you felt, When he got finished, he just looked at him and walked away. And you got back to your room and went, whoa. But you didn't do anything then in front of him, you know. Like I said, we had this was like, if we were late getting down to breakfast, if we were late getting down to dinner, if we didn't take a shower on time, we got this. We slept 2 to a room, me and my 3 brothers, and we had this little ogre of a woman that was supposed to be watching over us, and she would stand in the hallways in the morning, and if she heard us whispering in our room, she'd tell him, and we'd get whipped for that. I mean, it got to be that silly and that stupid. I used to get an extra one than my brothers because I have a rather wide derriere. And that's a posterior, that's the south end of you going north, whatever you want to call it. And I always built like a fire plug. That's just how I'm built, you know. And he thought I was going to be what he called a fat boy. And he had a big wide derriere himself. So he decided that wasn't going to happen to me, so he picked a weight out of the air. And I was supposed to weigh that every Tuesday. And every Tuesday I'd go home at 6 o'clock at night and I'd step on the scale and I had to be right on this weight. If I was 1/8 of a pound over, I got whipped. So what that set up was a thing where I'd make it. I'd be right on the weight that he picked. And I was only eating grapefruit. That's all I was allowed to eat was grapefruit in the morning, grapefruit at noon, and then I could have a piece of meat at night. And I'd step on the scale and it'd be perfect. And he'd say, safe again. Now that was on a Tuesday. Now Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, I felt so good because I made the weight. And man, I snuck everything I could out of that house and ate it, you know. I got real good. You know those 5-pound box of C's candy? Hell, I can get 10 pounds out of there, or 10 pieces out of there, and you'll never know there's any gone. I spread the papers under the ones that are still in there, you know, move it around real nice. I'd sneak them up under my bedpost, and I was real sneaky. I wouldn't tell my brother, for fear he'd squeal on me. And I'd wait till he went to sleep at night, and then I'd eat the candy. Well, about Friday, I'd be 6-7 pounds overweight. See? Then I'd have to go around stealing all the X-Lax and the milk of magnesia and everything else I could find in the house, and whip all that down and jump on sweaters and starve myself and eat grapefruit and just run all weekend and then run Monday at the track at school instead of going to lunch, and then Tuesday'd come and I'd either be right there or I'd be a little over, I'd get whipped, or I'd make it into tremendous relief and set up and I'd binge again, you know. Then it was purge and binge and purge and binge, and that kept going. That was a little extra anxiety. In school, as far as schoolwork, when we came home, A's were how it should be. B's were okay. C's were frowned on. D's got you licking, and F's got you licking almost every day, and then you had to sit up in the room with a book, whatever book you brought home from school, they shoved it at you and they said, memorize. And you memorized from 3 in the afternoon until dinner time. And then you came down with the book, and before you ate, you recited what you memorized. It didn't make no difference what it was about. It was about whatever schoolwork you had or what. Didn't matter. You just memorized it, you know. It got real confusing. It got real confusing because we didn't know who the hell we were supposed to be either, see. Because Dad always said, you're nobody special, you're nothing, you're just like the other kids, and that's what you are, so just act like it and don't act like anything. So we'd go to school, then the other kids all treated us like we were something different. Notice I didn't say better, just different. I'd get to school, and the first school I'd go to, you know, they'd start calling roll, they'd call my last name, I'd stick my hand up in the air, and at recess time, there was a couple of guys outside waiting to beat the hell out of me, see? And I couldn't really put that together. All that came to me was they heard my name and they beat me up. So it must be something about that. And I'd go home scuffed up, and my mother would say, what happened? And I'd tell her, and she'd say, well, they're just jealous. It didn't make any sense to me. My old man would say, what happened? I'd tell him, and he'd say, well, just ignore them. Just walk away from them. See, and already I'd learned already that I couldn't communicate with adults. So there was no chance to tell him that these guys would take a crosstown bus to whip your ass if you just ignored them, you know. So when you're a kid living in this kind of world, and you don't realize it's insanity, because it's all you know, and you're in it and they ain't. So you got to live by it. It becomes your reality. So do something about it. So what I did about it was get real mean and real crazy. And so when they took me outside to whip me, when they did, I waited for them next recess with a brick or a board, or I got behind them some way and hit them in the back of the head with something if they were bigger than me, or I took them on straight on if I had to. But I fought real crazy, and I learned real early. As far as I was concerned, the fight and adrenaline hit me so hard and so heavy when I was doing it that I didn't feel anything. I didn't have any pain till the next day. So I could go on, and you could whip on me, and I'd keep getting up, and I'd get you some way. I'd get some blood out of you somehow, some way. And I learned that if you do that, you don't have to win the fight. If you just score on them, the next day they're out looking for somebody that won't score on them. See, they're looking for some guy to ignore them. And mainly they get the idea that you're a nut, a crazy little kid, and they don't want any part of you, so they leave you alone. And that was great with me. That's all I wanted out of people all my life. Leave me alone, man. Just leave me alone. That's all. You don't have to like me. You don't have to be my friend. You don't have to be nothing. Just leave me alone. And that's how I lived. And then along about the sixth, an A day for me. Well, what really happened was along about the fourth or fifth grade, when you go to these Catholic military schools, they have organized sports. When I say organized, I mean they got 9-man baseball teams, 11-man football teams, uniforms and leagues, and you play, you know. So you learn the game. And I found sports, see. Now this was a big, big out for me. I was already terrified and confused as to what the hell I was supposed to be. People out there said I was something special because I was somebody's son, and in here they said, no, you're not special because you are. And then there was the other side of it where the magazines and the newspapers and the radio people would come around for interviews, and we'd have to sit up like 4 little monkeys with those those little diamond sweaters on, you know, the Argos sweaters, and we'd sit there nodding at the press like this. If they went, do you like? We'd go, yeah. And if it's, don't like, we don't, oh no, we'd do this. We don't know what the hell. We just were looking out of one eye and watching him. If he said, okay, then we were all right, you know. And that's, so we didn't know what the, and the image out there was that he was just a real kindly old guy, and he had 4 little cats and jammer kids that just gave him nothing but trouble all the time and wise-ass remarks. We did his radio show a lot. And on the show, we'd put him down, you know, on the script, you know. Jesus, when we'd rehearse that stuff, man, you'd say one line and you'd be looking at him the whole time, you know, because you didn't say this stuff at home, brother. It wasn't even close. You just said yes or no, sir, and bend over was all you heard, you know. So it became like, what the, you know, all we were all uptight, we were all anxiety-ridden. Like I say, terror, bewilderment, anxiety, and despair, man. We knew we were going to, I always knew I was going to break one of the rules somehow that week. I knew I was going to get a whipping. The anxiety was which one, you know, and the despair was, there, I did it, you know. And the bewilderment was, what the hell am I going to do next? What am I going to do now? I always knew I was going to fail. I always knew I was never going to make it through a week and have them all. And I never did. I always got, something always happened to me sometime during the week to louse up the weekend, whatever that was going to be. Like I say, I found sports. Now, sports was great for me in a lot of respects. Number one, I built up so much terror inside of me in a day that, man, the lid was about ready to blow off my skull by 3 o'clock every day anyway. So if I could go out and put on a uniform of some kind and go out and just kick ass and have somebody kick my ass and carry on and beat myself physically up to the point where I was exhausted, and I'd take a shower and I'd go home that day and I'd feel kind of euphoric and my brain would work kind of good and I felt a little peace. I felt a little something called like happiness maybe, you know, and there wasn't as much anxiety. I wasn't as nervous. And it made me feel good. Also, it kept me out of the house 2 hours longer every day. See, that was the real good part, because an A day for me was if I could play at school until 5 o'clock, something like that, and come home. By that time, my mother would be passed out. And if my dad was on the road, didn't have to fool with him. And this little ogre we had that was watching over us was in taking care of my mother. See, because in our house, Mom was never passed out. See, Mom didn't feel well. Mom had a headache. Mom was sleeping. Of course, Mom slept a lot on the dressing room floor. Mom slept a lot in the hall. But never was Mom drunk. You got your head handed to you. We even suggested that. See, and an A day, like I say, was if I could get through that. They were all busy. I could get home, take a shower, have my meal, do my homework, and then listen to the radio. Time to go to bed. That was an A day for me. See, and I got pretty good at this stuff called sports because, you know, I played real good for an alcoholic, you know, because I was already an alcoholic as a kid, and I played the 2 positions that an alcoholic should play: catcher and linebacker. Total paranoia. You're convinced the whole world is after you from all sides at all times. And they're going to hit you from the blind side no matter what happens anyway, so you might as well kill them all, you know. The first time they put me down behind the plate and said, "This is yours," the first pitch that came in, the first time a guy tried to score from third, I went up the line after him. I chased him up the line. They got me for interference. You know, that's the kind of crazy man I was. But it saved me. It saved me. The grades went along real good because they had to go along real good. I had nothing but people looking over my shoulder, and they had a thumb on me. The nuns were after me. The priests were after me. Dad was, everybody. So the grades, through no fault of my own, were always good. I could parrot out stuff and pass tests and do that. And, you know, meanwhile, I hated school. I didn't like to be there, but I was there, man, you know. And I started to build a little fantasy in my head. Hey, I started to get good at this sports thing. I didn't like who I was. I was somebody's son 1 minute, and then I wasn't, and then I was somebody's son, and I got my head handed to me because of it, and then I was somebody's son, and they were patting me on the back because of it, and I didn't know what the hell it all meant, and I didn't need it, and I didn't want it, and I didn't want to hear about it. And I started to build this thing in my head of, I got good at sports. I mean, I got really good. And I started to think, maybe I can make that a living, make a living at that. Maybe I can be a pro. But I got to start setting things up. Naturally, I'm going to control the future, you know. And I started thinking to myself, I got to go to a good high school where I can get some recognition because I'll never get a scholarship to college because of him. So, I'll have to do it on recognition. I'll have to have real good high school, 4 years of high school, and then I'll have to go on to college on that rep. But I had to pick out a good high school, one with good teams, and that would get some national recognition. And boy, God was in my corner, because I looked around, and there was a school in San Jose, California, Larry, called Bellarmine College Preparatory. It's run by the Jesuits. And it's not exactly what it sounds like. It's kind of a tough guy school. There's a lot of kids sent there that are first offenders from San Francisco, and then there's some kids there with some money, and then there's some kids without some money, and Catholic schools are like a mixture. The main thing is, it was a student body of 500 kids, and they were handled by the Jesuits, and some of us were boarders. And when I told my old man I was going there, he became ecstatic, because he was educated by the Jesuits, and he knew they were disciplinarians. And he thought I'd really made a wrong move, see? And he thought I'd really, but he said, oh, sure, you can go up there, because he knew they'd have their eye on me the whole time. So I went on up there. First of all, I had gone to a 9th grade at one of these military schools, so I checked with the CIF, and they said, no, it doesn't count as your freshman year. You start as freshman year up there, you have 4 years of eligibility. So I said, whoopee, great. So I went on up there, and I'll never forget the first night of orientation. All the freshmen were in the room, and the prefect of discipline was telling them when they were going to be allowed off campus. And he said, you will be allowed out Friday nights till 10:30, Saturday nights till 11, and Sunday afternoons from 1 to 5. And man, these guys hit the roof. They screaming and hollering, Nazi war camp, jail, Alcatraz, San Quentin. And I heard all this, and I looked around, and then I started doing the same thing. But inside, I'm jumping for joy, because that's more freedom than I ever had in my whole goddamn life. Jeez, I was in Fat City. The first Friday night, I went to the bus stop and sat there till 10:30. Just to be out. I didn't know where the hell to go or what to do. I just went out and sat there, and it's 10:25, and I walked back to campus. Have fun. I said, yeah, it was great. What did I know? That was beautiful for me, and then I'd have to go home on vacations, and that was terrible. I was like going back to jail in Beverly Hills, God almighty. And things went well there. The grades went along real good, and the sports thing went just as I had planned it. Freshman year I was JVs, and then just started on my varsity my sophomore year, and junior year went real good. Spring practice of my senior year rolls around. CIF sends a letter up. We made a mistake. Freshman year counted down here. You can't play anymore. And then just like that, the eligibility was gone. And in those days, if you were a high school kid, you didn't go to somebody on the school board or someplace and get a lawyer and get your mother and everybody and go down and make monkeys out of them, and they had to change it. No matter what, right or wrong. I mean, they said to me, I had the paperwork in my hand showing. I said, look, I'm right. They all said, yeah, you're right, but we can't do anything about it. You got to take it like a man. So to me, taking it like a man suddenly became, don't holler while I'm sticking that knife in your back, see? And so nobody was on my side, and nobody made any big deal about it. Well, what was happening with me was that was my one out, man. I had put all my eggs in one basket, and I'd kept it a secret and kept it jiving up in my head and in my heart, not telling anybody about it, and had this little thing going, and they just smashed it. And when they smashed it, that's when I said to myself, you're a loser. And I was 17 years old. You'll never make it. Now, already you're talking to, I forgot to tell you, by then I was already a speed freak for about 6 years because of that weight thing. When I got hip to diet doctors, my mother got hip to that and sent me to the diet doctor. Well, that fit in with Dad's plans real well, because all he figured was, here, I had to give this doctor some money. This doctor gives this kid some medicine. This kid takes the medicine, and he stays thin, and he don't get fat. And he's real jolly and happy all the time, too. That's nice. So, who knew they were wiring me up with amphetamines every day? I was walking around like this. Hi, Dad. How are you? Good to see you. Everything's fine. Everything's wonderful. Spinning and walking through the wall, instead of finding the doorway and all that, and laughing and screaming. And he thought, gee, the kid's happy because he's thin, and I'm a young junkie. I got 2 doctors in L.A. I'm getting the medication from. They're sending it up to San Jose, and when they get suspicious, I grab a couple of doctors up there. Show them my prescriptions. They start giving it to me from up there. So I'm getting 4 different doctors sending me speed all the time. Now, no more eligibility. Can't play ball no more. Okay, I start to drink. And man, I'm telling you, I don't know about the rest of you alcoholics out there. I know there's some of you like me. But I never in my life ever took a drink to be sociable. I never took a drink. Let's just go out and have a couple of drinks, man. I went out to get ripped. I went out to get out of it. That was my favorite expression. Let's get out of it. And I drank with both hands. I was a pig. I drank anything you had, and I drank as much of it as I could get my hands on, as fast as I could drink it, and then I turned around and fight everybody I could fight until I was down with my face in the ground and my nose in the dirt like this, and I was out. And then somebody picked me up and threw me someplace, and that's how I drank. That's the only way I knew how to drink. I wanted out of life is what I wanted. See? but I was too chicken to admit it then. It didn't dawn on me then. All it was I'd been righteously wronged, and it wasn't fair, and my life was over, and I didn't care, and I was a loser, and that was it, so what the hell's the difference? Now, I couldn't carry on like this too much because I was still under the thumb of the Jesuits. And I graduated from that high school because they kept it right here, And they're the kind of people that if you start to fail a subject, you start to drop, and they call you in, and they want to know why. And if you haven't got an answer, they put a tutor on you. And if that doesn't any good, you and the tutor go to extra study hall at night, But you will pass everything, and you will make the grades that you're supposed to make coming out of there. Well, I did. Then I went on to Stanford University. Now, this all my life I've had the kind of education where somebody's on my butt all the time making me do. Now I go to college, I sign in, and they don't care if they ever see you again. Till if you want to show up for finals, that's great with them, but if you don't, that's okay too. They just check you out. There's no big deal. Man, I thought I was in heaven for the first 7, 8 weeks there. I didn't even know where the classes were, And then just about 3 or 4 weeks before finals time, the first year, they sent me the notification that I was going to be out. I was already minus 137,000 or something, and I didn't, they didn't have any hope for me at all. The only thing that saved my butt was there was another kid who was a freshman there, was a friend of mine, we called him the Bug. And the Bug was one of those guys who came to Stanford University, signed up for the toughest courses you could find. He knew them all in a week. Memorized all the courses, he had it all ready in a week, and now he just sat back till finals, and he took the test, and took each test, it took him about a half an hour, and he got all A's. One of those guys, But a funny little dude, and he drank, so we got along good. And the Bug, and it took me, and he could teach algebra to an ape, So he took me and a couple other guys, and he would take us into the basement. We'd pay him some money, and he'd take us into the basement 3 weeks before the quarter ended. And we'd take along Benzedrine and coffee. No booze, just bennies and coffee. And we'd get down in the basement, and he would ram enough of every course into our skulls so that when we could get up and go into the classroom, wherever it was, and take the final and come out. And we'd get a C- or a D in the course. Now, the next day, we couldn't remember the name of the course, who the teacher was, who the hell was in the class. We just had enough memory to know where our bed was and get our stuff together and go home. But that's the way I went to college for 3.5 years, see, because I couldn't play ball, and there was this big empty hole inside me. There's something about sports, when you play it, and you love it, and it becomes your life, and you can't do it anymore. There's a certain time of day, about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It's going to be hard to believe, but there's a big hole that happens, and something's missing, man. You don't know what it is. And I would wind up out at a bar, at a beer garden or a bar out at Stanford, and there'd always be the other old broken-down jocks who couldn't play anymore, and they were out there too. And we'd start sitting around telling lies about how goddamn great we were and everything else, and how wonderful we were, and if life hadn't kicked us in the ass, we'd be stars and all that stuff. Meanwhile, we're drinking and drinking and drinking. So by 7 o'clock at night, every night, we were ripped, So that's how I went to college. Just stayed ripped every quarter like that, then I'd get the Bug, go down the basement someplace, wherever the hell it was, get enough of it jammed in my head. It was pointless. It was senseless. It didn't make any sense at all. And I lost a quarter when my mother passed away, and I lost a quarter when I had mono. And finally, I just got tired of going back up there and doing the same thing over and over again, and I quit. And my old man wouldn't talk to me for about 6 months, which was real good, because when he did talk to me, all I was a pain in the ass to him, and he just, he wasn't talking. Talking to him was like sitting and going, and he talked, and you just went, okay, fine. And then when he finished, you zoned out. And I could look at that. I could look at that guy, and I could do it with everybody from then on. Anybody in any place of authority, when they talk to me, I could look right at him and nod in the right places and say yep and nope and all that and all right. And I was in Cleveland in my head, man. I wasn't in the area. I wouldn't shit. But I never missed, man. I'd always be able to go, oh yes, so far good. Yeah, okay, Dad, fine. And then I'd go, and he'd think that made me stupid to him all the time, because I never could remember what he told me. It never dawned on him I wasn't interested in what he told me. That fact never dawned on him. So I got out of college, and I started in the show business. See, that's the only other thing I could do was sing and act. I'd done it as a little kid growing up, and being who I was always on his show, or I was always on some friend of his show or something like that. And I had a hit record somewhere in there when I was about 18. We made a couple of sides together, and it sold made a double gold-sided record. And I was always sent off in the summertime to work in Nevada, punching cows and putting away hay. And I never did hear any of it played. I just came back one summer, and my mother said, "You got a hit record. Here's the money's going in the bank, and you go to school." And that was it. And I was on the cover of Life magazine, and I tried to burn and hide all the copies that I could around where I was going to school, because I figured them guys see this, they'll kill me. They're already after me, man. They see me on the cover of Life. That's just like advertising. Here, kick me and kick my head off, beat me to death, So I tried to buy every copy of that damn book I could find. I run out of money trying to buy that damn book up. You know, total shame about it. I didn't want anybody to even know about that I lived down there. I didn't want where this was my life here. I didn't want nobody down there knowing nothing, you know. Anyway, I get into show business. And I come down, I get a hold of an agent, and he says to me, he says, "You're a talented man." He says, "You can act." He says, "You can sing. You can do comedy." He says, "I don't know where to start you." He said, maybe we ought to start you in nightclubs." Well, putting a drunk to work in a nightclub is like turning the kid loose in a candy store and leaving him the keys and going home. Because from the first day of rehearsal until the day you leave that particular club, there is a card table in your dressing room on which sits a bottle of booze, of every kind of booze known to mankind, and a bucket of ice and 6 little glasses. And you got lots of friends because they know it, and it's free. And one minute you finish one bottle and throw it away, there's a full one there to take its place. And you don't pay for any of it. None of it. You don't pay for any of it. But now I'm working in show business. And now I've got all the alcoholic thinking going. Everything, I have to be perfect. I cannot, and if I make one mistake, it's the end of the world, you know. And I have to be, and perfect, when I say I have to be perfect, I mean I have to be perfect to be able to say it myself at the end of the show, all right. I don't mean perfect and go, yay, wahoo. It was always, okay, that's how it should be. See, I've inherited this shit, but I don't know it, you know. And every night I have to be perfect, and every night I know I can't be perfect, so I'm setting myself up for failure every single night I go out there. And I'll go out there, I'll come to work, I'll have 6, 7 drinks to get out there, because I'm scared to death and can't tell anybody. I go out there, I may do a whole show and miss one note. That's all I hear. I come off stage, people say, great show. I say, bullshit. I turn around, I walk in my dressing room, I slam the door, I open I get the bottle, and from then till the time the second show starts, I drink and I tell myself what a louse I am, and how bad I am, and how ugly I am, and how stupid I am, and how untalented I am, and how they're going to find out about me any minute. Any minute, the magic of the last name is going to be canceled out, and they're going to throw me out anyhow. And then the music starts, and I got to go do the second show. And I do that to myself every night. The second show's over, I come back, I sit down in the dressing room, alone, spin the top off the bottle, drink, till the guy who's cleaning up the joint comes and kicks me out. Then I go down to whatever after-hours joint I can find that's open, whatever town I'm in. I drink till noon, 1 o'clock, I go back to the hotel, and I flop out into bed for 3 or 4 hours. They wake me up. I have 3 drinks, I throw them up, and I keep the 4th one down, and then I get shaved and showered, and I go to the club, and we start again. And that's how I was living life. It never made any difference. I never did anything to please me. People would tell me how great I was and what a great job I was doing and all this stuff, and I just kept saying, yeah, right, sure. And inside here was going, you're nothing, you're nobody, you're never going to be nobody, you're a loser, and you stink. And outside I got to carry on like I got an ego as big as this building. Because if they get wise to me, they're going to lower the boom. See, that's how the old head is working. And I keep this up. Now, when I'm not working nightclubs, I'm working in movies or television. See, I get a big name. I start at the top. I don't get the advantage of working up from the bottom. I start at the top. So I'm supposed to know all this stuff. And everybody always acts toward me like my father has sat me down all his life and done nothing but talk show business to me. My father said one thing to me my whole life about show business. He said, show up on time. That was his directions to me. So when they come to me and they scare with the practice and the loud with the feminine, the Cub Scout, I always have to go, right, yeah, I got it. They walk away, now I got to find somebody who knows what the hell they said. And then I got to get the information from him, then I got to cut his throat because he'll not go back and tell him that I didn't know. See? So I'm always working on the edge. I'm always on the precipice. They want me to do something, I don't know what it is, roll them, go, and I just go with whatever the hell I got, and I hope it was something and come out, and that's how I felt all the time. So I'm drinking to cover that up. And I become the working man's champion on these movies that I'm doing. I'm on these movies, and somebody comes to me and says, they won't give me the extra $5 that I needed for doing a silent bit here. I said, give this man the extra $5. They say, no, we won't give it to him. I said, I ain't working till you do. Well, I'm the champion of the extras. I'm the champion of the guys, the working men on stage. But the guys with the suits and ties and the officers are getting real tired of my act. You know, they don't like me at all. I'm a champion down here, but I'm nothing up there. But they take it because I'm doing good. You know, I'm making them some money, and I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm showing up. And then I start not to show up. And that's not a conscious choice. Sometimes it was. By God, sometimes it was. But most of the time, I'd get caught out drinking till 5, 6 in the morning. I had to be at work at 7. And I'd go home and start to clean up. And when I went home, Well, I still do, don't I? To this day, when I go home, I start locking doors on the way in, man. Bam, bam, bam. I just lock myself farther and farther and farther. I've always got myself locked in. So when I do pass out, you got to dynamite the joint to get me. You know, you can't get me. Phones don't mean nothing at all. Telephones ain't even. So they could never find me. They'd say, well, we called your house and called your house. But I was there, but I didn't want to explain it to them. In fact, I didn't want to explain anything to anybody. So I used to show up acting cocky. I said, what's the matter? You didn't show up yesterday. Was I supposed to show up yesterday? Yeah, didn't you know that? No, I didn't know. They knew I was lying. They knew I was naked. What happened to you? I was sick. Did you call the doctor? No, I was sick alone. All the smart guy shit. All the wise guy routines. It's real funny, but it's not funny. And this kept up and kept us. Now, somewhere in here, I was on tour, and I went to Australia with Louis Armstrong. We were supposed to do 18 days down there, come back to L.A. for 3 days, and then 17 days in England. We did the 18 days down there, came back, plane lands. My agent says to me, you're drafted. I said, on what? He said, you're drafted. I said, I got a C profile, 20% of the motion gone out of this arm. They already said women and children first, then me. What happened? He said, there's no war on, nobody's attacking anybody. And it said, well, your draft board got caught hiding somebody's file, and you're next. So I had to go in, and I went in. They didn't give me the 6 months that they usually give everybody to get some records and some television shows, some stuff built up in the backlog, so when you go away and your agent releases these things over a period of time, it's like you never left. I had nothing, and they wouldn't let me give me time to get nothing. I couldn't even finish the tour with Louis. I was gone. Well, I made up a little thing of 730 squares on a piece of paper, and that was 730 days, 2 years in the Army, right there. And I was going to stay drunk every single day. And every day I marked off one and stayed just as drunk as I could stay. Except for the first 8 weeks. Basic training was easy for me. I was used to discipline. I was used to all that crap. That was like second nature. Plus, I'd been in military school all my life. I knew the manual of arms. I knew how to take a rifle apart. So I was a genius next to the other guys I was coming in with. So they made me a squad leader. And they set me and the 8 other guys out in the bush, and they told us to find our way home. And I don't know, I got lucky and found a road, and we got home. So I became a big wizard in the Mazoo and everything like that. And that was the first 8 weeks was pretty good. Then I got out of there, and I got out to where the politics started getting back in it again about who I was going to be with, one thing or another, and I started drinking. And I just drank. I just stayed as drunk as I could stay. I wound up in Germany with a handful of Army orders and sitting on my duffel bag in the snow, and I didn't know why I was there. And I couldn't read Army. I don't know any human being knows how to read Army orders. I don't know who the company clerks. The only son bitch can read Army orders. I'll tell you the truth. And somebody looked at him and said, "Oh, you're supposed to be," and they sent me to wherever I was supposed to go. And I was there, and I was drunk every day, except they had these things called IG inspections. And when the IG came around, all the bars on the post closed that day. Well, I'd always be so drunk the night before I'd never remember to get a jug, So when those inspectors would come around, the first thing that happened to me was that 12 hours into the day, I'd go on my head into a seizure. And, I'd bite my tongue in the hole. They'd stick a stick in my mouth, and they'd take me up to neurological or neuropsychiatric or whatever it is, and they'd shot dye up in my brain, dye in my spine, and dye in my ass, and dye all over. And finally, they said, "Son, you're an epileptic." And I said, "Do I have to do any bad time?" They said, "No." I said, "Okay, I'll be an epileptic." Be an epileptic. It's good for me. And so I was an epileptic, and they gave me phenobarbital and Dilantin. See? I always get that reaction, but see what you don't understand, that wasn't my kick. I couldn't stand that down stuff, man. That drove me crazy. I had to have the speed, up and booze. That was me, man. Pile that speed in and get drunk. Walking blackouts, man, all the time. I was always walking, 72 hours gone out of my life, and I'd walk into them and walk out the other side of them. I never passed out. I'd just be in a different country or a different town or something, Shit. The speed just kept me walking. So anyway, I'm an epileptic. So I get out of the Army, I go to a doctor, and he says, "What are you taking?" And I show him the speed and everything else. He turns white. He says, "How much do you drink?" And I told him. He turned whiter. And then he said, "What are these things for?" I said, "That's because I'm an epileptic." He says, "You're a what?" I said, "I'm an epileptic. That's what they gave me in the Army." Well, knowing Army doctors, he said, "Let me do some tests on you first." So he did some tests, and he came back in a week, and he says, "You're no epileptic." He says, "You're a drunk is what you are." Yeah, and I said, "Well, shit, I knew that. I have to pay you money for that? I knew that before I got here. I could have told you, if you'd asked me, I'd have told you that. I know." He said, "You don't understand. Your body was so sodden with alcohol that if you had to go 12 hours without any, you went into an alcoholic seizure. Withdrawals, that's what you were going through. You didn't have that." I said, "Does that mean I can have my driver's license back?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Okay." It wasn't the best move he ever made, but it was good for me. I started to drive cars again, and everybody had to get off the road. I went back to work. And I'm still drinking, I'm still taking all kinds of speed, whatever I can find. I'm getting it now from truck drivers, I'm getting black beauties, I'm getting street drugs, I'm taking stuff from the doctor and everything else. And I get a partial heart block. And I'm working, it's right before I'm going to Vegas. I got to open in Vegas, and suddenly I'm rehearsing, I come home one night and I can't move from the neck down. So I call the hospital, and the ambulance comes, and they take me over there, and they lay me out, and I'm paralyzed, and the doctor keeps saying, comes in, he said, "What are you taking?" I told him, and he turned white. How much I'm drinking? He turned white again, then he said, "You ever take any digitalis?" And I said, "No, I don't take no digit. What is it?" He said, "Well, it's for heart, but he says, if you take it wrong, it can be," he says, you've got a partial heart block. He said, "Let get them all the medications that you got up there at your house and bring them down here." So they backed up the truck. And they brought it all down to the hospital. And he starts going through this stuff, and all of a sudden one of these prescriptions this doctor had given me was just loaded with digitalis. And he said, "That's it. You've got a partial heart. You can't do anything. You can't work, drink, do anything for 6 months." I said, "You're crazy." I said, "I've already signed a contract to work for these guys in Vegas, and they don't care if you're sick. They don't want to hear if you're sick. They just want you to be there. What am I going to do?" He says, "Well," he said, "the only thing I can do for you," he said, "you got to stick on this. You got to give me your word." I said, "What?" "Word of an alcoholic." What does he know? He said to me, "You can't drink and you can't use, and I'm going to give you 2 prescriptions, one for a shot of B12 and one for a shot of dexedrine every night." He said, "You do 2 shows a night." He said, "You take it before the first show." He said, "You tell whoever's in charge there to be on their toes, to go right into whatever's coming after you. Get them changed and get them in the wings, because you don't know when you're going to go on your face. You might fall down the first show, so you don't know how long you're going to last. But just have them ready." So I said, okay. So I went on up there. And I didn't drink, and I didn't use, and at night and during the day when I wasn't working, I laid down. I was real straight. There was a line captain there. And I had to tell her, because she had a number right after me, and then the headliner came on, Joey Lewis. There's a parlay, me and Joey Lewis. He drank a little, for those of you who don't know. And so I told her, so she'd have the group ready right there, so every time, after my first number, they were all ready to come back on in case I fell on my face. Anyway, I get friendly with her, and we get married. Hey. And then we go to L.A. and we settle down, and her 5-year-old son comes out, and I adopt him, and now 11 months later, no, it was about 2 months later, because it's been 6 months in between. About 2 months after the marriage, the doctor says, "Okay, you're okay now. You can drink." Now, I've just married this woman, and she has no idea that I even drink, much less do anything else. She found out in the next 11 months, I won't tell you that. And I went right back to my old patterns, and I'd be gone for 3 days and 3 nights, and I'd come out of it in Cleveland, someplace, or, some hotel room laying next to some rhino that looked worse than me, and go over to the desk and pull out the Bible and look in the flyleaf to see what hotel you're in, because you can't call downstairs and say, "Where am I?" They'll come up for the money right then. They don't give you no... And that's how I was conducting my life. And I'd get back, and I'd get on my knees in front of her, and I'd cry, and I'd say, "I'll never do it again. I swear to God I wouldn't." Man, I meant it, and you meant it, and we all meant it every time we ever said it, man. But I couldn't control it. And I'd be gone again the next month, and gone again the next. Somewhere in the month, there was always 3 days and 3 nights when I'd be gone. Finally, after 11 months, she disappeared, she and the kid. 2 weeks later, I get a call. I have to go to a lawyer's office. I go to the office. She's there. "Your wife says you have to go away and stop drinking and using for the rest of your life. Go away to this dry out place and dry out and never take another drink or use, or they're going to leave you." Well, I didn't want to lose my wife, and I didn't want to lose my kid. I got a good feeling from them. I love them people, and besides, for the first time in my life, somebody was counting on me to do something, And I never had that before. The only person counting on me was me, and I didn't count. So I liked that feeling. So I went away, and I went to this joint, and they'd picked out a rich man's dry-out clinic back east. Cost you $9 million, and you don't learn nothing. And a lot of people around playing paddleball and making trays and painting pictures and seeing the shrinks, and and they're all going in town and getting ripped on the weekends and coming back. I'm the only dummy that's staying. It's a voluntary lockup, so I'm staying, and they're all going and coming back and starting week 1 over again. But they're paying over again, too. I went to a shrink. I said, "Let me be the vice president here. I love this deal. You guys got him knocked." I said, "What do you have to do to get out of here?" They said, "Get drunk." I said, "Good. I got drunk." I came back. I said, "I got drunk." They said, "Goodbye." I said, "Goodbye." I went home. I walked in the house. I told my wife I got drunk. I said, "But that's the last time I'm going to drink and the last time I'm going to use." And it was. And I was in 61. And, but every time I told her, every time I left the house, I said, I'm going now, honey. Just going to the store or whatever it is. She'd go, "Yeah, sure." And I wanted to get that look off her face. And I didn't know how to do it. I didn't have no program. The only thing I knew about AA they had given me back there at that place, amongst the other reading they gave me was the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And you know what I did with that? I read all the stories in the back, you know, because that was interesting as hell. You know, look what happened to this. Oh, look at this woman. Hey, here's a guy, a family. Look, family. But the first 164 pages looked like directions, and that was boring to me. I didn't want to read that shit. You know, all that how-to and how it works and all that. That was boring, so I didn't read that. That book sat on my shelf for the next 19 years, by the way. Never did open it again. Now I get home, and now I go on this 19-year dry drunk. And during this time, my alcoholic thinking remembered my religion in this fashion. You be a good boy, you go to confession, you go to communion, you go to church, you keep the commandments, you pray for what you want, and you get it. So that's what I did. And before I stopped drinking and using, everybody said to me, hey, man, you've got lots of talent. You could be a star. But all you got to do is stop this drinking and using. Well, I stopped drinking and using, see? And nothing happened. See, the businesses had already closed down on me. Nobody was hiring me. And I don't know, somewhere in my mind I had a thought, well, I'll get back and I'll stand around for 6 months and they'll see I'm not drinking, I'm not in the bars, and I'm not fighting, I'm not creating havoc, and they'll know I'm not drinking. Then they'll hire me now. They'll hire me then. You know, I'll be okay. Yeah, didn't happen that way. And I had an agent, and he kept putting me up for stuff. And I'd get up for these roles, and these what I call fix-it roles, you know. I was on my way to be rocket to stardom again now, folks. Okay, folks, I'm all right now. Everything's all right now. Here we go. And every time one of these good roles would come up, I'd get down on my knees, I'd pray to God, I'd say, please, please, give me this one. This is important, man. I need this one. This one will get the career going. This one will start me back up again. Let me have this one, God, please. I'd pray. I'd go to confession. I'd go to communion. I was living a life just snow white at home, you know, a perfect husband, perfect father, trying to be a perfect father and a perfect husband, no fooling around, no nothing, always there for the kid, doing all that stuff, keeping it real clean so I could get what I wanted, man. And every time I go down, I'd be this close, and somebody else would get it. And I'd come home, and I'd look up, and I'd say, okay, what do you want from me now? What is it now? What more can I do? Where can I? Maybe I can tighten it up a little more here. Whoops, I had a bad thought there. Maybe I can clean that up. Whoops, maybe confession twice a day I'll get it. Oh, two masses a day. That'll be fun. You know, and I kept doing this, and I kept going for these things that I wanted. Nothing. I got a little job with Jack Webb on a series called Adam 12. I was about the third lead down. I was a semi-regular. That wasn't good enough for me. You know, the fact that Jack was a good man and that Jack he hired a lot of us guys who were trouble. And if he hired us and we didn't make trouble for him, he used us again. And he kept using us until we got drunk, got loaded or something and screwed up, then he wouldn't hire us anymore. But as long as we stayed straight, he hired us. Well, I stayed straight, so he hired me. But that wasn't a career. It wasn't enough for me. And I wanted to get going with the big stuff in the heart. And man, every one of those big jobs was this close. And then the little jobs, little things that, didn't mean nothing to me. I was getting them, but I wasn't grateful for them. I was saying, I see now. And I started to get in this insanity. Now I kept getting madder and madder and madder because I was living cleaner and cleaner and nothing was happening. And finally I said, that's the game. Okay, God, you're going to make me pay the second half of my life for the first half of my life. And the way you're going to do it is to dangle all this good stuff in front of me. And every time I reach for it, man, you're going to jerk it away and hand me nothing. But these little jobs that are humbling and keep my nose in the dirt. Well, I don't want to play. So I quit. So I went into my house, and I started isolating. And I didn't come out of my house to do nothing but go grocery shopping and go to the gym. And I'd go to these readings for work. And when on my way to the readings, it was a big job, I'd be laughing up my sleeve. I know the game now, God. I ain't going to get this. You don't want this one for me. So I'd go into the reading, and I'd say, here I am, give me the script. You want this read? You got a minute? Okay, there. See you later. Out. You know. Naturally, I didn't get the job. No matter how much talent you got, there's 10 guys walk through the door for a job, they're going to hire the guy they like. Doesn't matter who's the most talented, they're going to hire the guy they like. And they didn't like me, and I didn't care they didn't like me. I didn't think that counted. See? And I kept going home and kept raging and ranting at God. Now during this 19-year period, I tried every single thing I could think of. Like I've already told you, I tried religion. I tried every kind of therapy there was. Gestalt, what do you call it, encounter therapy, Freudian. I tried psycho-cybernetics, the magic power of your mind, the magic power of believing, the magic power of your ears, the magic power of whatever. Every kind of self-help book, every kind of system that came down, nothing worked. Nothing worked. And still I didn't get it. Still I didn't get it. At the end of 19 years, living like I just hated everybody. I hated God. I thought God had made up a sick joke, and it was called the world. And we were the butts of it. And I was a bag of garbage, and so were you. You were no better than me. And that was life, as far as I was concerned. 19 years later, my wife says to me, that's it, I can't take any more of the cynicism and the aggravation. And she and the kid left. So that was my bottom, because right then I said to myself, well, at least I thought I was being a father and a husband, but I wasn't even doing that. So I'm sitting there, and I don't know where to go now. And I get a part in a picture. It's a part with no lines, and I meet a girl in this picture, and we set up some light housekeeping, and then we got married, and then we moved up to Las Vegas, because I figured her family lived up there, and I figured, what the hell, I ain't getting no work here anyway. So we moved up there, and now a strange thing started to happen in my life. We were up there, and I'm used to playing tennis, and I was a smoker, so I'm used to playing or exercising. I'm used to not getting my first win, or not getting my second win until you take a little break and you get it, and then it comes and you go. Well, this wasn't happening anymore. And I'd be laying watching television at night, and suddenly I'd have to go take a big breath, like that. And she looked at me one night. She said, "What the hell is that?" I said, "I don't know. I'm getting old, I guess. It's like I lay here and I forget to breathe. And suddenly I have to go and take a breath." She says, "I don't like that. Go to the doctor." And I said, "Nah, I ain't going on." She says, "Go to the doctor." I don't listen to anybody. I never have listened to anybody say, "Do this," or "Don't do that." The minute they do, I do the exact opposite. No reason. I have no reason why. I tell you now, I don't know why I did this. I went to the doctor. I got to the doctor. He gave me an EEG. He said, "We don't like what we see in 4 boxes. Now, why don't you go over to my friend, the heart specialist, and see him." That's an automatic no for me. I don't go near. If this guy looks like there's trouble, I don't go nowhere near the next step. I'm gone. I'm out of the office and gone. I don't know why. I turned around and went to the heart doctor. He gave me what they call an angiogram. That's when they stick this thing up in your groin that goes up through here and circles around into your heart, shoots dye in your heart, and you see your heart on the television screen doing that. And you see all the veins and everything in there. And he said to me, "You got 95% blockage in 2 of your arteries and 65 in another. And you haven't had a heart attack yet. You're a lucky man. You better get your ass over to San Francisco Memorial Hospital like now. And have Dr. Hill see you over there." I don't know why. I did it. I went and I saw the doctor. And on the way to the doctor, I stopped by my stepmother's house, and she had a guy there to convince me, sure as hell, "Don't go have an operation, man. Coming down to Pritikin and eat herbs and shrubs and berries and stuff, and it'll be okay, That's a beautiful cop-out for me, baby. That's a great boy. Tell me that instead of operation, and I'm gone with you in a minute. And I said, "No, I don't think so. I'm going to go to the doctor." So I went up to the hospital. And they took me in the hospital, and Dr. Hill looked at the tests and everything else and all that stuff, and he gave me some more tests. And now, it's only been 2 days past. The night of the second day, he's sitting on the end of my bed, and I'm having a triple bypass the next morning. And he says to me, "You're here for 2 reasons, smoking and anger." He said, "How many times a day do you get angry?" I said, "I wake up in the morning knowing I'm going to have to fight somebody, and the rest of the day, I just try to find out who the hell it is." And he said, "That's funny dialogue." He said, "Well, let me tell you what you do to yourself." He said, "How many times a day do you get angry?" I said, "What do I know? 40, 50, 100. What do I know?" He says, "Well, every time you get angry, you're pumping adrenaline and noradrenaline through your system. That stuff eats up the veins. So you get pockets in all your veins, and then any cholesterol you do have falls in there just like you had a problem. So you've done it with anger. Other people do it with cholesterol. You haven't got that problem." He says, "I'm going to do this operation on you. I'm going to give you new veins around here, like a new man. But," he says, "if you don't," and he wasn't on the program, he said, "if you don't alter your attitudes, you're going to be dead in 3 years anyway." I don't know why. I said, "Okay, I'll have the operation." So I had the operation. Well, that night I'm laying up there. Now, when you have this operation, they shave you from here down, see, on your whole body. And if you've never had your body shaved, folks, when you look down, that ain't your body no more. I don't care what they tell you. They give you a new body. This ain't mine. It don't look nothing like anything I ever had. And then they got this stuff called betadine that they put on you. It's soap. It's like iodine soap. You have to take 2 showers with it, but it stays with you after you dry off. See, and it's kind of a brownish yellow. So you look like this after that's all done. You look just like a barbecue chicken, man. Just ready to go on the spit. And you got about as much courage left too. But Mr. Wise Guy, Mr. Big, I'll fight everybody. I'm laying up in the bed, and it's about 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'm smoking cigarettes like crazy because I know I'm not going to be able to smoke anymore. And I'm laying up there, and I'm dealing with God now. Want to hear ego? I'm dealing with God. I'm saying, "All right, I tell you what. I'll have the operation, and if you bring me through the other side of it, I'll go do that thing. He said, alter my attitudes, whatever the hell that, I'll do that. Whatever it takes to do that, I'll do that. So I go down, I have the operation. I come out the other side. I said, oh, shit, now I got to go alter my attitude. So I went down to L.A., and I talked to a shrink down there, a guy named Bill Rader, and he sent me to a woman named Lelia Gary. And this woman is kind of a Burstandic, stocky, powerhouse, salt-of-the-earth type woman, and I just loved her. And she got me hooked on her first with about 2 or 3 meetings, and she put me in a group and hooked me real good with the group and everything. And then one night she says, you're too angry. You got to go to AA. I said, what? She said, you got to go to AA. I said, what the hell are you talking? I said, I haven't had a drink or any speed in 19 years in my life, still a bag of garbage. What the hell am I going to, I can't drink coffee and smoke cigarettes anymore anyway. What am I going to do down there? And she says, I can't tell you. You got to go find out. I said, no. I said, that's shrink talk. I've been to a lot of you guys. I said, don't give me that. I said, I'll tell you what. You tell me now what I'm going to learn down there, and if I like what I hear, I'll go down there. Okay? Now, I forgot to tell you. During this 19-year dry drunk I'm on, where nothing is worth, people are calling me to go give talks to youth groups and people and stuff about being a drunk and a junkie and not being one anymore. And I'm going and talking. And they're saying to me, inevitably, the question comes up, how are you staying sober? I said, I'm sober because I know there's about 18 guys out there in my business that are just waiting for me to fall on my ass again, and I ain't never going to give them the satisfaction. Now, that's how I'm staying sober. That's how I'm doing. And I meant that. That's exactly why I got out of bed every morning. That's exactly why I didn't take a drink every day, because I thought if I do, they'll find out, them some bitches, and say, see, I told you so. Well, they ain't going to get me. And that's the kind of crazy man I was. I said, but don't do it my way. My way doesn't work. Go to AA. This was my big experiment for 19 years. Go to AA. I sent people to AA in different towns across the country. I sent everybody but me. I didn't send me. I sent them. Now this woman says to me, I got to go to AA. And I said, nah. She says, she takes the bull by the horn. She says, if you don't go to AA, you can't come back here. Whoa, that's automatic for me. Goodbye. See you later, and I'm gone. I don't know why. Now listen, I had to call up a guy that I sent to AA. So I said to him, I said, what happens in those meetings that you go to down there? He says, I can't tell you. You got to come find out. I said, when did you become a shrink, you putz? So I said, okay, I'll tell you what, Charlie. I said, I'll meet you down. I said, when's the meeting? When would be the next meeting? This was at night. He says, there's a meeting at noon at Radford tomorrow. I've heard that one. I said, there's a meeting. He said, meeting at noon. I said, okay, what time do I have to meet you there? He said, why don't you come down about 11:30 and we'll have some coffee and sit around, we'll talk, stuff like that. So I said, okay. So I went down there and I met Charlie. Now, he's the only guy I knew. And I'm really one of the lucky ones, because I didn't walk through that door. I wasn't in that room 45 seconds. I mean this sincerely. I knew I was finally home. I knew I was where I belonged my whole goddamn life. That feeling started to go away from me of always being on the outside looking in, always comparing my insides with everybody else's outside and coming out second best, always being fat, stupid, ugly, no talent, rotten-tempered, mean-ass bum. All that started to go away. And nobody did nothing. I mean, nobody ran over to me, and everybody just kind of walked in, hey, how are you? Here's Gary. This is his first day. Oh, hey, what do you say? Have a cup of coffee. So, and we sat around for a while, and we talked, and then the meeting started, and God almighty, I still get a little misty. I remember that I'm sitting there, and I'm listening to people getting up on this podium. They got a podium there like this, a little higher than this, and people getting up there, and they were sharing and laughing about stuff that I had kept secret, locked up in my head and my heart and soul for years, because I was so goddamn afraid if anybody found out about it that they'd kill me, or that I'd be labeled crazy. I was already labeled crazy, but that didn't bother me. I didn't want them to find out that I had a heart. I didn't want them to find out I had feelings like fear and love and warmth and kindness. I always locked that away because, man,